and I'm going to spotlight you, Patty. Can everyone see Patty in the main spotlight? My spotlight's been a bit crazy lately too. And it's such a pleasure for me to introduce this woman who has just, oh, I get emotional thinking about it because you've had such a profound impact on my life, and I know so many others. You have such a strong and gentle wisdom and kindness, and your coaching ability, it's just like Tony, you just know that you're always going to find a way through. With it doesn't matter who you are and where you're from. Patty has this unbelievable sense of knowing of, well, you can have it be how you want, and there's just a few things in the way, and we're going to sort those things out, and then you're going to get what you want. And it's such a beautiful thing to wake up to each morning. We speak every few weeks, but I just love knowing that Patty's there, and she's as close to a Zen Buddha that I've ever met. And she's walked her talk on all of this. She has experienced, she's experienced all the great things in life that make us resilient, that open our heart, that open our mind. She's been working with Tony for how many years, Patty?
Oh my gosh, I can't even count the years, but I've been a trainer with Tony since 1992. So going back a very long way.
Yes, it is. And, Date with Destiny is one of my favorite events, and you probably would have done at least 20 of those, right?
Oh my gosh.
40, twice a year?
Well over 50, yeah. More often, actually, yeah.
So I love that. So this qualifies you to really understand how most humans really work, how our psychology works, how some of the common things that, and I know that you have coached, very high level business CEOs, politicians, all kinds of things. And, I'm not even sure what we're going to talk about today. Do you have something specifically on your heart? I was just so psyched that you said, yes, I will be on this call for Be the Change.
Of course. And yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be on this call with you. Thank you for the invitation. One of the very few people in the world that I could say, wow, glad I'm on a call with her today. Nowhere else I'd rather be. Because I admire you, right? You always inspire me because you're always so willing to learn something new. You're hungry to grow and to set a new standard for yourself, and then figure out exactly what's necessary to fulfill on whatever that new standard is that you're setting for yourself, which makes you a wonderful leader, because as we say, leaders go first, right? If you're not willing to go first, try it on, see how it works, then you can't expect anyone to follow you. So I'm always inspired by what's up next for you, always excited about it. And there's so many things, as you know, so many different things that we could talk about today, and I could go on and on and on. So I can just choose something if you like, or if there's burning questions out there from some of your associates, then we could address those too, whatever you think is best.
Well, I love that. And one of the things I've loved about these calls is we have had a lot of flow, and they've gone in all kinds of amazing directions. So I'm definitely up for that. And there's a lot of the regulars on here too. So these beautiful faces here who are joining us live, a lot will watch the recording as well. They're hungry to learn. They're showing up each morning, and they know the power of starting their day right. They know the power of the triad, that it's important that we stand guard of, our thoughts and our state right now more than ever, and that the world needs leadership, really great heart-centered leadership more than ever. So let me check. Was there any questions so far? There was a lot in the chat. Patty's a mum. She's a wife. She owns several businesses as well. So really we could go in all kinds of directions. I guess while I'm waiting for a question to pop up there, I'd love to know what you would love to cover. But the one thing that I have really come to love about what you do, Patty, is you know that contentment, that a contentment in life is possible for everyone. And that with, with a consistent combination of feeding our mind and feeding our spirit, that there's just some thoughts and beliefs that are in the way. And when we can regard what are these beliefs, I mean, I've had some of the most profound moments with you, just like kind of, it's like, as Scott would say, looking under the hood, like, kind of poking around in some of the beliefs. And it's quality questions that really get us there. And you have the most spectacular quality questions. When you and I are having a coaching session, I always have about 10 pages of notes, because I know that you're just going to ask me a question. And when you're in, if some of you don't understand the process of coaching, really coaching is different to mentoring. Coaching is revealing your own answers. And I really love some of the questions. Could we start there of what are some of your favorite questions to people?
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions are usually really simple, right? They're not complex. We think that things have to be really complex to be important. And really the most simple things in the simplest language and the simplest questions are really most profound. So simple, powerful questions are, what's my next step? What's most important right now? What else could this mean? That's a very, very important question, because we're constantly making up meanings, right? That's what we do all day long, is we make up meanings about things. And once we make up the meaning, we think it's true. So always asking ourselves, what else could this mean? In particular, when you have some negative meaning attached to something, and it's disempowering you or making you feel bad or holding you back from something, then what else could this mean? You can make up meanings all day long. So the intention really is come up with a meaning that empowers you, right? There's always a meaning that could empower you, especially about other people, because we never know 100% what's going on for another person. Right. And whatever is going on there, they could have all kinds of issues that we have no idea about. And it helps us to be a lot more compassionate, a lot more understanding. So that's one of my favorites. What else could this mean? Other questions that are similar to that are things like, how can this serve me? Right. And that could be about a person, about a situation, about your business. How can this serve me? What can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? Those are questions that are about meaning, about empowering yourself, and about continuing to move in the right direction. And when you talk about the triad, remember that the base of our triad is physiology. The second side is focus and beliefs, right? Beliefs are so important. And then language. And language really creates our understanding of life. Our actual experience of life comes from language. Without language, there's no experience. So there isn't much more important in our lives than the language that we use. And that means language that we speak out loud to others, and the language that's that internal dialogue that never stops, right? It never shuts off. You can't really turn it off. It's always going. And it's blah, 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 blah sometimes, right? So learning to take charge of that and decide for yourself what you want that language to be, what you want that conversation, internal dialogue to be, is extremely powerful. It really gives you back control of your life. So if you notice what we're doing all day long, our entire life is made up of something we're choosing in every moment. That's what our life is. We choose something in every single moment. So right now, you choose to be on a Zoom call, you choose to make notes, you choose to ask a question. You're always choosing every single moment. That's your life, is choosing. And we're choosing from this internal dialogue going on in our heads. And we think so quickly, right? The speed of thought is faster than the speed of light. We actually don't even need language to think, it's that fast. But when we try to analyze it and break it down and put it into words, what we find is what we're really doing is asking and answering, asking and answering. And from those answers, we choose something, right? We choose something in every moment. So your whole life is created from this asking and answering and choosing to do something. So what we can say is that the quality of your life, right? We've heard this said before, right? The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your decisions and choices. And those choices are determined by the quality of the questions you're asking yourself. So questions really are the most powerful piece of language that we have, the questions that we ask. So if you're going to be asking questions all day long, what you want them to be are really powerful quality questions. So how do you know if something is a quality question? You just answer it, right? So if the quality question gives you a quality answer, that's a really great question. And a quality question always gives you a good quality answer. It gives you something to do, something to move forward. It could be something to do, something to say, something to be, but it's always moving you forward in the right direction. So we call those quality questions. A lot of us in life have a whole series of questions that we could categorize as doubt-inducing questions. So doubt-inducing questions don't move you forward in life. They actually stop you. They hold you back. They keep you stuck, right? We say things like that, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. It's because you're asking a question that keeps you there. And those kinds of questions are things like, why is this happening to me? What else could go wrong? They usually start with why, right? Why questions will keep you in a big vicious circle that's going to spiral you downward, right? Because our brain has been trained our entire life to answer questions. So whatever question you're asking, your brain is going to answer it. So if you're asking a question that's not a good quality question, it might be a totally invalid question, but your brain is going to answer it, right? So if you're asking yourself something like, why can't I understand this? Your brain is going, well, because you're just not smart enough. Well, everybody else is smarter than you, right? I mean, these are not valid questions and they're not valid answers, but that's that circle, right? That's that vicious circle that goes around in your head. So taking back charge of that is taking back control. Because honestly, the questions that you ask yourself most often, they are running your life. Right? They've got a hold of you and they're running your life. It's like you're not really in charge. These questions are. And I know some people will say, well, I don't think that I'm asking myself questions. I just tell myself these things. And I get that that's how you're interpreting it, right? It's like I tell myself, I always get it wrong, or I always get it right, or I always do a great job, or I always do a terrible job. Whatever it is you're telling yourself and you think it's only statements, there really is a question behind the statement, right? So if you're telling yourself things like, I always do a great job, or I always do a bad job, the question behind that is, how am I doing, right? Or how am I measuring up? Things like that. So there is always a question behind the statements. I don't know what else to say about that. Do you have any questions about that? Because really getting this, like really getting it, like, oh my God, I say this all the time, or I ask that all the time. Once you change it, right, when you find the ones, or incantations as we call them, right, the things we say over and over and over again, like life sucks, or right, this always happens to me. The more you say it, the more it becomes just, it's like a belief. You believe it, the more you say it, the more you live in it. So deliberately changing those to something that empowers you is like, it can change your life dramatically, right? Over time, the difference is just huge. It's like the rudder on the boat. Make this one little tweak and whoa, over time, it's huge. So understanding the power of your own language, how much power your words actually have because you live in them. whatever you say you believe, and then you live like it's true.
Yeah, I love that, Patty. I was just thinking, you know, how we bring this to life. And there's a lot of parents on here. There's a lot of, you know, work from home business owners. And now suddenly, and this group is pretty well trained on personalities as well.
Oh,
A lot of them have heard me talk about, you know, personalities and scheduling. And so the questions became easier for me when I identified, along with you, 2 or 3 of the major personalities that show up most days. And
mm-hmm.
some of them serve us really well, and some of them are kind of the default one that's asking the not so great questions.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me here, and thank you for sharing, Sarah. She's written, why can't the kids just listen? That's her big question.
Yeah.
Right? And it's such a great example. Thank you for sharing it. My version, I think, was, you know, why do they keep fighting? And my answer every single time is it's my fault. I'm a crappy mum and I've missed their most important window, their foundation years, and they're going to have to go to David Destiny 10 times to get fixed up. That's my whole loop was that. Every time they fight, I would end up like I've been a bad mum. Can you talk us, I mean, I love how you giggle because it shows us that we're all human, we're having this human round loop experience. And it makes us feel better, right, everyone? It just makes us feel better.
Yeah.
What could you talk to for that, Patty?
Yeah, and we're just not all that different from each other, right? And when I giggle, it's because I can relate, right? Because every question you can come up with, whether it's a good one or a bad one, I've probably asked it at some point, right? I mean, been on the planet for a really long time. So yeah, and raising kids. And for a long time, I was a single mom too. So a lot of you know what that's like. So that was a really great question. I think what you said was, why can't the kids just listen? So when you ask a question like that, there's these assumptions, right? These assumptions built into the question, right? So what's built into that question? You're assuming that kids don't listen, right? That's the first assumption in that question is kids don't listen. That's kind of disempowering to believe that kids just never listen. The other assumption that is kind of more subtly built into it is that you can't change it, right? And when we think there's something that we can't change, it gives us a feeling of helplessness. So just shifting that language and taking back control is huge, right? So what kind of question would you want to replace that with? Maybe something like, what could I do differently with the kids today? What could I say differently? What different question could I ask them? And again, think about, you could carry on conversations forever just asking questions and never telling anything. And in particular with kids, maybe more so than adults, but we all have this aversion to being told, right? None of us really want to be told what to do, at least most of the time. And kids don't, right? Kids don't want to be told what to do. They actually tune us out, right? I know I have kids, I raise kids, now I have grandkids, right? And I was a kid, and that's what we do. We just tune out our parents, right? It just is blah, blah, blah in the background. We don't even listen to them. So when it seems like, right, you have lots of references for this question, why can't the kids just listen, right? Because it so often seems like they don't. And they probably are not, because they tune us out. And they particularly tune us out when we're telling them what to do. They don't want to be told what to do, even though, you know, we have to teach them and guide them and teach them how to live a good life. So if you consider, what if I only ask them questions, or at least most of the time, instead of telling them, what would the difference be? So asking, right, asking them, do you think it would be a good idea to do this now, or would you think it would be a better idea to do it later? Or even more specific than that, right? Often offering choices in the question. Do you want to do your homework at 3 o'clock, or do you want to do it at 4 o'clock, right? Things like that. So at posing it as a question also offering choices. Again, the kids are trained just like we are to answer questions. So they're going to answer it, right? You might not always like the answer, but the truth is they're always going to answer a question. And the funny thing about human beings, and that's all of us, is when we answer a question, we believe that's our idea. Whatever that answer is, that's our idea. We answered it. We came up with it. So asking questions that will lead in a particular direction makes you a really good influencer. So you can use that with your kids. You can use that in your business. You can use it with your husbands, right? It's like your wives, whatever. So you want to become a master of great quality questions, because the more you do that, the more you actually become a far more powerful influencer. And in every single conversation, somebody's getting influenced, right? So the more certainty you have, the more quality questions you ask, the more you become the one in the conversation who is the more powerful influencer. Is that helpful?
I love that. And that's
and again, the questions are simple questions usually.
Yeah.
Life isn't all that complicated.
It's very exciting because when you really understand this and now go and put it in practice today, start to put it in practice today and notice, you know, we had Michelle Cassidy on yesterday, Brad's gorgeous wife, and she was talking about there's the stimulus, then there's the gap, and then there's the response.
Sure.
And in that gap where you would find yourself usually reacting to the kids yelling or whatever, in that beautiful gap, ask a great question. Just find yourself in the gap asking a great question. How can I get them to be excited to do their job? What would I have to do? What would I have to think about? What tone would I have to use? You know, what mode would I need to be in? Because I can get, again, back to personalities. My mama bear personality is present with them and connected and gets so much further faster with them than the boss lady coming out and telling them. And they want to please us. They want to do well. They're totally geared for that. So when we can help them win and notice the good, notice the good of what we want more of. James was saying, you know, we haven't talked relationships much on any of these Be the Change calls. But I also know from Tony and myself, it's like dog training, right, Patty? It's like ignore the bad, notice the good, reward the good. And the quality questions are very, very powerful. They're like an express shortcut to what you want. So I just want to summarize 2 or 3 things that you shared there that were really powerful. Someone's always influencing the conversation. So you want to make sure that it's you. And you want to make sure that you know what your outcome is. You want to make sure that you know what your outcome is. So that for me became more of a daily practice. And still to this day, if I have not set up my day well and scheduled it and protected it and known my outcome, the day will own me. I don't own the day anymore, and it's a different day. It's reaction and the old conditioning and all the things will come back. So this leads me into this next question that I think is a really great one and a very honest and powerful one. Thank you, Amber. It's more of a statement, actually. She says that my biggest doubt, question, or statement is in the victim mentality. I could never be that. Things like that never happen to me. I'll never achieve my goals. What would be some ideas on how to switch this around, please, is what she's asked. It shows up around perceived failures. Could you talk to that, Patty? I think a lot of us relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that pretty much everybody on the planet, and there could be exceptions, but I've never met anyone who doesn't have some victim personality at some point during their lives, right? Some people live in victim, right? They just live there, and you know who they are, right? All they want to do is talk about how bad things are. You'll never guess what happened to me this time. And they like to talk to other people who are victims, right? Because that misery, right? They commiserate together. But I think all of us can relate to that. We've had a time in our life when we felt, you know, something was unjust or unfair, and we were a victim for whatever reason. So we can all relate to that. What's important is to recognize it, right? So it's wonderful that most of you are really familiar with this concept that we all have these multiple personalities that show up, and that victim shows up, right? Something happens in life and the victim shows up. That's a good example of you're not in control of your life, right? You don't get up in the morning and say, I think I'll just be a victim today, right? You don't plan it that way, but you allow these triggers, these things in life to poke you and push you in that direction, so the victim shows up. And we have all these references from the past, right? That it's happened before, and here it is again. So the first thing is become aware of it, right? You're allowing life to decide you're going to live as a victim for whatever length of time. It could be, 10 minutes, it could be 10 years. So once you really pay attention to that, you'll notice that the victim has its own language. The victim has its own triad. The victim only says victim things, right? The victim can't say anything except victim things. So what I like to do with that is choose the personality, because you're the one who knows all your own personalities. And if you don't know, then ask somebody who knows you really well, right? Your friends, they know your personalities, and choose the one that you really want to show up. Which is the one that can actually handle these life situations and handle them in a great way. And most people also have a real take charge personality, one that just knows how to get things done. And again, I don't think I've met anybody in my lifetime that doesn't have a personality that's really productive and really aspirational and really knows how to take care of things, or at least be resourceful enough to ask for help or ask the right person. So identifying those personalities is a great tool. It's a great strategy. So when you say, I've got the victim, slumps over, the victim doesn't feel good, the victim says, why is this happening to me? Here we go again. All those things that the victim says, fine, but whose personality that when you're in that one, right, and life is flowing and you're making things happen, again, most of us are like robots and we just live on automatic. So what we tend to think is that when life is good, when life is aligning the way I'd like it to, then I feel that way. Then I feel empowered. But the truth is you're always choosing it. You are choosing it, right? So you've got this, again, references from the past. Well, if life lines up the way I want it to, then I will feel good and I'll make good decisions. So taking back control is becoming aware of and just practicing. You can choose any personality, any triad, anytime you want. And the way to get good at that is to practice it, right? So really defining the triad or the personality, the one that you really want to be in charge most of the time, giving it a name, and practice it. If you don't practice it, it's not going to be there, right? Like in a heartbeat when you need it the most. So how do you stand when you're in that personality? How do you move and gesture? What do you say, right? What is the language, or what's the language you want to be using? And if someone is like really, really super stuck and think they don't have one of those personalities, then the way to help someone like that would be to have them choose a role model, right? It's like, who do you know that acts the way you want to act? What would they say? How would they move? What would they do? And we know, right? We know, because if we identify someone like that, we know the things they say. So then it can be like a game, right? It's like, just pretend you're that person, right? Like you're playing that person as a part in a play, but you have to practice. The key is that you have to practice it. So starting your day, getting yourself into that triad, into that personality, standing the way they stand, saying what they say, doing it in front of a mirror, doing it while you're jumping up and down on a rebounder, right? You've got to get energy into it. and practice it for no good reason except that you want to start taking back charge of your life. And you can do this, something that I like to do with clients, and this is really helpful, is to go back and think about a situation that didn't work out so well, right? And maybe you were in your victim personality and you had an interaction with someone and it just went very poorly and you wish you could do it over again. If you just think about that situation and decide, well, what if I had been in my superwoman, personality instead of my victim personality? What would I have done differently? What would I have said differently? Then what would the outcome of that interaction have been? Now, here's why there's multiple reasons why doing something like that is really important. First of all, you come up with new ideas. So the next time something happens, you're likely to react differently and handle it differently. But remember that our brain can't tell the difference between something imagined and something real. Right? It's kind of like watching a movie. If you watch a movie and you know it's a fictional story, you still get all emotionally involved in the story. You can learn lessons from that story. You remember the story, you store it in your memory. So our brain processes that fictional information the same as real information. So you want to use that to your advantage. So when you go back in time and think, well, if I had done this and I had said that, I would have gotten this really great outcome. When you think that, or write it, or say it out loud, you give your brain these new references. And it's to your brain, it's like it really happened. And that's pretty cool, right? So you want to keep giving your brain great references so that you don't say, oh, this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened and this bad thing happened, which is easy to focus on, but start giving your brain all these better references. And it doesn't matter that they didn't happen, right? But your brain has them. So you store those good references. So next time in a situation, you're going to handle it in a much better way. That might sound really weird to some of you, but it's real. It's what actually happens.
And it works.
It works, exactly, it works.
It works. So sometimes, we hear the saying, fake it till you make it. I think it's embody a part of you, because again, that you reminded me about this. We've all had a lot of moments of courage and boldness and playfulness and fun. And sometimes a personality is just a certain combination. And so for me, if I need to show up in a different way in a conversation, let's take family, because we all have so many different, triggers. I know that we can talk about triggers here. And the easiest way for me to change many decades of conditioning and a built up suffering that I had around my incredible mother, the most amazing woman on the planet, the biggest heart on legs. And I went through a stage where she was just driving me crazy. That, she would be doing mum, and Patty would remind me, well, is mum going to change or am I going to change? And I knew the answer. And so the fastest way for me to change it was to actually embody a fun personality when mum came around. Not the controller, not the housekeeper, not the woman, but actually a playful daughter. And it works so much better. I don't have to think about it as much. If I feel my old triggers of when she says this or does this, it drives me crazy, I can change the personality quicker than anything else. I can go, oh, there goes mum, she needs love. I'm going to pick her up and pretend to slap her because that'll make her laugh. Literally, that's our pattern interrupt. That's funny. And so now we can giggle. But I got to tell you, this was years of suffering. This was really affecting me and my relationship with my kids and her. And this was a time in life, here was my leverage. This is a time in life where my mum deserves the most love and affection and just unconditional love. And I wanted that for her, and I wanted it for me. So that was enough reason for me to want to change it, to really do enough of the work, to want to be the right personality at the right time. So that was a groundbreaking question that you gifted me, Patty, is this the right personality in the driver's seat right now, or for this part? And this is where I began scheduling my correct, most powerful personalities across the day.
Yep.
Yeah, do you want to talk to that? Because this
Yeah, that is
life-changing.
Yeah, that is one of the most important questions also, is which personality is in charge right now, and is it the right one? And you always know, right? You always know, are you being, some crabby Appleton kind of thing, or are you being really sweet and kind? Are you being a boss, or are you being a friend or a mentor? You always know which one you're in. And here's the clue when you ask that question. If you're feeling any of the emotions that you would consider negative, right? So it could be sad or angry or frustrated, the ones that you really don't want to be feeling, if you're feeling one of those, the wrong personality's in charge and you need to switch. So when you really become aware of this and decide to take control of it and decide which of your personalities or characters you're going to be living in, you live in the positive emotions. Doesn't mean life stops happening, because it'll keep happening. It'll keep presenting the triggers, but you'll switch really quickly, right? Things are going to happen in life to make you sad or frustrated, but you don't have to stay there, because if you stay there, you're not going to make great decisions. So which personality am I in, right? Like, who's in charge running the show right now? Because some of our personalities, we all have them, right? We all do. We have one or two or three that should never be in charge of anything, right? Things are not going to go well, and you're not going to feel great if you allow that personality to be in charge. And something you mentioned earlier, Linda, about outcome, one of the most important things I ever learned was to ask, what's my outcome? What's my real outcome? Or you could say it in other ways, like what's most important right now. But being clear on your real outcomes really puts you in control of your life. It puts you in control of meetings. It puts you in control of conversations, because the majority of people in the world are not asking that question, and they go off in all these different directions and they argue for no apparent reason. But when you're focused on knowing what your real outcome is, then you're constantly moving in the direction of getting that outcome. It's huge. It's so huge. One simple question: what's my real outcome?
It is huge. And, when we talk about the masterpiece life, which the first time I heard that, I just knew that I wanted to create that I was here to find what that was for me. And I have a passion for teaching that to others as well, because I've been able to literally do that in my own life, and it's been profound. So you can set up the rules of the game so you can experience more joy, more connection, more love, more gratitude, more abundance. And it's like Patty's saying, you get to choose the emotional states that you mostly want to live in. That's the real life by design. It's not the stuff and the things. The vehicles help us, and we love those, but really it's who we become as we're attaining that life, and how fast we can get there, was huge for me. I felt like you would have to be in, sometimes growth, I had a really limiting belief that growth had to be slow and painful. Not a good belief, right? It can be really instant and uplifting. Change can happen the minute that you change your belief and change your mind. And so another example would be, there was suffering there, and it was my own suffering with how I wanted my mum to be, which was just ridiculous. Same with the kids. So if we just talk about kids at the moment, trying to control them, it works for the first few years. And then it's just like Patty says, they're not going to have it. If there's going to be patterns that won't be good for you or good for them, and they're just patterns of behavior. They're not you. So another thing that I think is really great to know and remember is our behavior is not us. We really want to separate who we are at our core, in our spirit, whatever you want to call it, source, you're a God connection. You are not your behavior. Neither is your children, your husband, they're just patterns of emotions called a triad. They're patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So I love knowing that when I can observe a consistent pattern that shows up, and I'll give you an example. It helps me to give real life examples. The pattern during school time was in the morning, there was a lot of yell. There was a lot of yell in the morning and a lot of argy-bargy and control between 3 kids and mum and dad. And it was just, I didn't want to come down the stairs anymore in the morning. And I wanted to solve this. You know, part of a stronger part of my personality is I am a solver. And I wanted to get to the bottom of this, is why this is happening. And I think it's God's funny plan for all of us, is that we often can't see our pattern because we're just in it. It's like we're in a puppet show and someone else is pulling the strings. We know that there's strings, but it's super frustrating. Can anyone relate? You know, this kid does that, and then the dad says this, and then the mum says this, and then it's boom. And it just stays there, and it feels like we can't change it. And what you helped me understand, Patty, was, well, I have to lead the change. If I don't like it, I always have the power to choose. I get to choose how I want it to be. So way back to that original belief, and it's a very useful and empowering belief, I get to choose. We're always making choices. So what was the pattern? My language sucked, my physiology sucked. I would wake up in the victim every day because of a physical, my physical body would go first, and it would be painful, and I would have the belief of it's not fair. I don't want to be in pain. And I would, you know, come down, you know, rubbing my eyes and slightly grumpy before it started. And if I wasn't leading the energy and the change, then everyone was low energy. And Patty simply reminded me that energy is going to go first, right? The outcome of, I want more harmony in the morning. I want more fun. I want a higher vibe in the morning. I want everyone to feel loved and connected and important. And so we made some of those changes, but it had to start with me. I couldn't go and tell them, go be different. I had to be the change. And I had to be quite deliberate about it. And here's the thing that I'll share. The mornings that I don't do my even 4-minute ritual in the shower of asking great questions, putting a song on, and starting with intention and seeing how I want my day to go, come down and be the change, lead. Now, I'm far from perfect. It doesn't always come off like this, but I went from a lot of yell in the morning that I didn't like to now it's occasional. And we were able to lead the kids, you know, in a much more positive way because we recognized the pattern. We became aware we want to change it. We need to change it. And we came up with the strategy. How are we going to do that? And we involved the kids. We actually sat down and asked them, how do you want the holidays to go? How do you want the breakfast time to go? What's important to you? And they have the most amazing answers. They really, really do. So involving them is such a great tool. So that was amazing, Patty. I don't know if you wanted to speak to anything else about that.
That is such a great example because and it's exactly what we were saying earlier, is instead of your usual pattern was tell the kids to do this and tell the kids to do that, and then you get frustrated and then you yell at them, and we've all done it, right? We've all been there. you shifted to, I'll ask them questions, right? It's like, whoa, what a difference. Ask them what they think, ask them what they want, right? If you ask them how do they want the morning to be, they're not going to say, I want everybody to be yelling at each other, right? So they're going to come up with answers that make sense, which means now they're thinking about it. Now it's in their consciousness. Now they're creating through their answers how they want life to be. And the thing is, we all have situations somewhere in our life like that, right? Where we really want to change the circumstance or a relationship with someone or a group. And you have to be really committed to making that change. First of all, taking responsibility for, if I want it to shift, then I have to take responsibility. And it's one step at a time. That's what's important to remember, is it's whatever you're doing, big or small or in between, it's always one step at a time. And so the first day that you decide we're going to ask the children questions and we're going to be playful, it may not shift that day, right? And it may not shift the second or third day, but if you're consistent, it will shift. It will absolutely shift. It's like if you refuse to argue with someone, there is no argument, right? If somebody who you typically argue with and you go back and forth and back and forth, if you always agree with them in some way, then there's no argument, right? So you may not agree with what someone's saying, but you can say, well, I understand why you would say that, right? Then there's no argument, right? There's only an argument if you're pushing back. So it's the same thing. So the kids or your husband or your work associates might not shift immediately the first time you use your new pattern, but it will shift, because what's going on in their brain is, oh, I don't trust this. This isn't how they normally act. I know they really argue with me all the time. But eventually, as you're consistent, the pattern changes. There's no way around it. The pattern will change. So you have to remember, the more consistent you are and the more committed and determined you are, the quicker you're going to get your results. But anything and everything is one step at a time.
Yes, I love that. And sometimes, you know, the big thing that I learned on that year of platinum and so many events and that stacking effect is it's just a pattern. Everything is a pattern. And if you want to change it, you can. And that is a very empowering thought and belief, because it puts you back in control. It puts you back in the driver's seat of you get to choose. You're not your conditioning and you're not your behavior. And the second part of that is that it's conditioning. And that's the most important point. And that's where I see a lot of people go and do a lot of the work, but not do the conditioning. And even now, if an old pattern comes back up, like I haven't been great at scheduling in this staycation, you know, kind of crazy time, and yet our business is booming. And if I don't get a hold of it properly this week, there's going to be more yelling and miscommunication because I'm not in control. I know better. And if I don't condition it right now, all my good work becomes undone very quickly. So I can't stress enough, and you've reminded me of this, Patty, it's all about conditioning. And it's, you know, could you talk to, you know, what Tony does every day? We know it's not just something he makes up and says from stage.
Yeah. And remember, one of the things he says is repetition is the mother of skill, right? The more times you do something, the better you get at it. The more times you do it, the quicker it becomes a real habit. So we use the word pattern. We can also use the word habit. I really just happen to really like the word ritual. And Tony Robbins fills his life with rituals. And he teaches us to do the same. So he has a morning routine. He has his hour of power. He has his exercise routines. He has the questions that he asks in the morning, the questions he asks in the evening. All of these things are rituals. He never gets on stage, and you know, he goes on stage all the time, right? He might go on stage, you know, 90% of the days of a year, he goes on stage, and multiple times a day. He never goes on stage without doing a ritual. He has a ritual that's filled with what he does to move his body, the incantations he says, the prayers that he says, the guidance that he asks for. He does that every single time. He is a man who 100% walks his talk. Otherwise, he couldn't teach us what he teaches us, right? And I've never met anyone in my lifetime who walks their talk more than he walks his talk. It's like 100%. He is never not that guy, right? He's always that guy. So he can be on stage in front of, 10,000 people, or he can be alone with 2 or 3 of his, family or close friends. He's still that guy. He still uses the same language, the same rituals, and he never, ever alters from that, unless he's making it better, right? Because he's always looking for ways to make things better, to make things simpler. And think about it that way, that you actually do fill your life with rituals. So are they positive rituals or are they negative rituals? And it could be either one, right? So we do things like we brush our teeth, we take a shower, we, make breakfast. Those are rituals. We do them every day. We don't think of them because we're doing them on automatic. And the reason we're doing them on automatic is because we've done it so many times and we believe it's the right thing to do. But all of us, at least some of the time during our lives, also have negative rituals, right? So a negative ritual could be hitting the snooze button 100 times, right, on the alarm clock. It's like, I don't want to get up. I don't want to get up. And, getting up out of bed and complaining about why you don't want to get out of bed, that's a negative ritual, right? So the more times you do it, the more times you're likely to continue doing it, and you don't feel good, and you're creating something negative, really, right? It sets you up for basically not having a great day. So we all have positive rituals, we all have negative rituals. So you want to start examining your life and look at what are the rituals or habits or patterns that you have that really empower you, that are really productive in your life. And more importantly, which are the ones that hold you back in some way. And just taking those one at a time and replacing them with something that really serves you is actually huge. It's huge. It's like exponential growth by shifting your language, shifting your patterns. There was something else you said, I can't remember. That we're not our behavior, right? Yeah. Taking that on and understanding we are not our behavior, because we have all kinds of different behaviors, but it's easy to fall into the habit of identifying people with a particular behavior. Oh, he's always this way, or she's always that way, or the children never listen. And when we do that, we're saying that person is that behavior. Well, they're not, right? We all have many behaviors and many personalities. And that concept makes a huge, huge difference in all your relationships when you start remembering, no, that person is not that behavior. And behaviors can shift. And the more you shift around those people, the more their behaviors can shift. And it sounds too simple, right? It's like it sounds too easy, too good to be true. But it is. It's that simple and it's that profound. And it takes consistency. You have to be determined that you're going to stay consistent. And then your results are probably way better than you could ever imagine they can be. Things just turn around. Things start to seem like magic and miracles. That's why we can say things like, I believe in miracles. I expect a miracle every day, because you can live your life that way.
Yes.
And that's why having gratitude and having a gratitude journal and keeping track of what you're grateful for and keeping track of the magic moments in your life. And what's important, don't just capture them, but you need to go back and read them, right? Because then you keep getting the references for, oh yeah, I can do that any day. It's really wonderful to live that way. And you can't be grateful and be upset at the same time. You can't be grateful and angry at the same time. And gratitude creates the energy of bringing more abundance of everything into your life. It really makes a huge difference.
Yes.
So again, that's one of the rituals, right? Being grateful and capturing those things that are magic moments and things that you really truly want to be grateful for.
Yeah. And so a lot of us have the excuse of time, or especially time for conditioning. Oh, I don't have time for that ritual. And really it comes back to self-love. I wasn't making the time because I wasn't loving myself enough to fill my own cup. That's been a great big long journey, that one. But it can be as simple as, and I'm just seeing some of the comments, Kate, for her, it's washing her hair, changes her state. And, to me, that's a form of self-love. That's you saying, don't interrupt this. This is me and my time, and this is important. So this is me loving me right now. And for me, it's those 5 or 6 quality questions in the shower and believe me, I still have the interruptions in the shower, but instead of being annoyed at them now, I include them. So one of the children kept coming into the shower, like, I'm going to do this with you now, Mum, which was really cute because I changed the meaning. Instead of going, no, this is my time, you're annoying me, which I was doing, I'm like, this is fun. I know how to do this. Let's do it together. And now he has the same habit, which is really cute and sweet. So here's why I'm saying this. This can be as little as 5 minutes. And on the days that I don't do that shower, I think I shared this with you, Patty, our shower needed to be repaired for a few weeks. And so I had to keep going in all the other showers around the house. It was like my house was a caravan park. And it really bothered me because I just love my little shower ritual. And I wasn't doing these questions in the other showers for whatever reason. Part of my ritual had changed, and it took me weeks to notice why I was so frustrated and grumpy and felt like so much old conditioning had come back. So the reason I share that is conditioning is everything. It really, you've taught me that more than anything, that we must stay on top of that conditioning. Why? Because we're here to live our masterpiece life. Right? We all have earned that and are worth that and deserve that. So this was so great, Patty. I'm so excited that everyone got to see the magic of you, and I'm just so grateful to have you in my life and to be learning from you, because all of these incredible people get to learn through me from what you're helping me with in my own personal life and business life. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm so grateful to you. Very grateful to you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for joining everyone today. Catch the replay on live as well. And make it an outstanding day. It's April the 14th. It's Tuesday here. It's Monday in America. Yeah. And let's make this week our very, very best week. What can we do completely differently to really set ourselves up for the masterpiece life this week? Remember, you get to choose. Thank you so much, Patty. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Mwah. Bye.